Better late than never. Today we're going to talk about the Eldar Kill Team faction preview that was released on Warcom, a good handful of days ago now. So we're going to get straight into it with the Corsair Voidguard. So Voidguard have gained a brand new faction ability, so I'll read it. Rifles. Whenever a friendly Corsair Voidguard operative is shooting with a shuriken rifle or ranger-long rifle during an activation in which it hasn't performed the charge, fallback, or reposition action, that weapon has the accurate one-weapon rule. Note that this operative isn't restricted from performing those actions after shooting. So this is new. It's really cool. It's a little situational, but that last sentence, note that the operative isn't restricted from performing those actions after shooting, makes it a lot less situational, right? As long as you can shoot and then move, you're allowed to shoot and move, okay? You just can't move and then shoot. So, less situational than it could be, right? But as a general rule to have across your whole team, pretty cool. This is a team generally as well, which is going to have, if it's the same as it was, like generally you won't have any shuriken rifles. Really, you will have your ranger long rifle. You may have one or two shuriken rifles. I think largely, if you pick the specialists, you end up with a lot of shuriken pistols. So realistically, I think this is mainly a rule for the sniper with the ranger long rifle, or perhaps a slight incentive to take troopers. But yeah, it's a bit neither here nor there, to be honest. Their main special rule, Eldar Raiders, is unchanged, and so they can all perform a free dash during their activation, which is, their signature ability. Opportunistic Fighters has been buffed. So Opportunistic Fighters is a firefight ploy, which means that when an enemy operative falls back, before it moves, you can inflict 2d3 damage on that operative. So it used to be d3 damage, it's gone up to 2d3, that's pretty cool. And Runes of Guidance is an entirely new equipment piece, so let's read that. Runes of Guidance. Once per turning point when a friendly Corsair Voidguard Wayseeker or Corsair Voidguard Soulweaver operative is performing a psychic unique action, excluding Warpfold, you can use this rule. If you do, until the end of that action, add 3 inches to its distance requirement. This has no effect on psychic weapons, e.g. the devastating distance requirement of Lightning Strike. So that's pretty cool, right? A new piece of equipment that specifically buffs your psychic weapons. Obviously, it's really hard to say how good it is, because the big thing with equipment is opportunity cost. We don't know what the other pieces of faction equipment are. I know that having done these previews, I'm starting to think more and more that a lot of the time you're going to be taking... You're going to really... I think it's likely that you're going to want to take 4 pieces of faction equipment. The faction equipment generally seems quite good, although there will definitely be places where... there'll definitely be boards where you look at it and you're like, I want to take a smoke grenade or I want to take a ladder. And I think that's definitely going to be a thing. Some people really like the idea of the barricades and the barbed wire. But for me, it's one of those things. If you're really good... And you like use your barricades really well, or you really put your barbed wire or something in a place where it's really going to... You could win the game with that, right? But it has a high skill ceiling. Whereas faction equipment's easier, right? You just take a thing and it provides you with a buff, and it's always going to be useful, even if you're not necessarily using it in the most optimal way. So, to me, in all honesty, I'm a pretty mediocre player of games usually. It seems really appealing. Anyway, let's move on. We get a Corsair data card. So, spoilers, if you haven't already heard from everyone else on the internet, all the elves have move of 7 now. So, this is why I've been saying that you probably want to buy a tape measure. 7 is a really fiddly distance to do with the plastic tools, because it's like the 6-inch tool and then like 1 inch from the other tool. What I actually would say is the problem with tape measures is that they bend and you can't tightly corner it when you're moving in Kill Team, which is why actually using the 3 circles is kind of helpful. What I'm actually going to do is have I have some screw together rods where each rod is an inch length and you can vary the length of the rod and actually use those. But like, go and buy this funny bespoke movement tool from this website isn't very like inclusive or new player friendly. So I say buy a tape measure because I just think I have a better experience with the tape measure than trying to awkwardly hold together a 6-inch move tool and a 1-inch move tool, or to sort of go, well, I'll go 2, 2, 2, and then 1. I don't know. It still seems weird to me. We've got the pistol range buff. Okay, so this is common to every pistol we've seen. They go from 6 to 8 inches. Soul Channel has a change. So Soul Channel is a buff. 1 AP, select one other friendly Corsair Voidguard operative visible to within 6 of this operative until the end of that operative's next activation. Add 1 to its APL stat. So this is a change. It now says one other. Like, you would never want to soul buff yourself because you'd be spending an AP to gain an AP, which is pointless, largely. Although you could be doing it for like objective control. If you're on an objective, you spend an AP to give yourself an extra AP stat, and then you carry on and do something else. But you can't do it anymore. So, yeah. So the tiny edge case where you were doing it just to buff your stat for objective control is no longer a thing. Soul Heal. So Soul Heal's a heal. 1 AP. So that friendly Corsair Voidguard operative visible to within 6 of this operative. That operative regains 2d3 lost wounds. It used to be d3, now it's 2d3, which is much more useful because you are an 8-wound team. 2d3, your most likely roll is 7. No, sorry, that will be on 2d6. Gosh, 2d3, your most likely roll is, I don't know. It's not actually something I've known it beforehand. I'm going to guess 4. But still, much better, right? But now it can only be cast once. So it used to be it did 1d3, but you had a rule where you could do it twice, but you had to pay an AP each time. So it is a straightforward buff. Are you going to take a piece of equipment to extend the range on these from 6 to 8? Potentially, right? Potentially. Yeah. Let's look at the Blades of Cain. So, some things. Aspect techniques seem totally unchanged. Like, I read it through, but it seems totally unchanged. Now, it could have changes if we see more of it. Right, we've only seen one technique for each of the aspects, but having read through the whole thing, it just seems to be totally the same as it ever was. So that's a relief. We don't need to read it. We've got Rune of Prophecy, which is a reimagining of a piece of equipment. So once per battle, after rolling off to decide initiative, you can add D3 to or subtract D3 from your result. So this used to be add or subtract 1. So it's obviously more powerful with D3, but obviously equipment all has to be more valuable now because it's your 4 pieces of equipment that you can pick. This is pretty cool. Again, I keep repeating myself. It is really so hard. You need to see the balance of equipment and see what's what and what the opportunity cost is to be able to really rank whether anything is good. But I quite like it. It's going to come up reasonably often. Your roll is going to potentially be within 3 of your opponent's roll is reasonably likely. So yeah. Just hard to say how good it is because you don't know what you're not giving. The equipment's a really interesting one because as we're coming to the end now of going through all of these, even if your teams, because some of the teams have barely changed, even if your team has barely changed, the equipment is the thing that's been totally overhauled, and so that's where the most, like for every single team, equipment is going to be a totally new thing for that team, which is pretty cool. Dance of Death is a completely new strategic ploy. Select 2 friendly Blades of Cain operatives visible to within 6 of each other, remove them both from the kill zone, and set them back up in each other's previous locations. In other words, swap their positions. I mean, that's really cool. Yeah, it's situational, but there are going to be times when that comes in really clutch. It's a really useful ability to have, but there will definitely be games where you don't use it, right? It's kind of fun, it's funny, it's cool, it's evocative of what the game is supposed to be. I really enjoy Dance of Death, and that's cool. Now, obviously, the hardcore Blades of Cain players will be asking themselves, what strat ploy have we lost to gain this, which may well be a thing, but this one seems pretty cool and interesting. Here we have a Blades of Cain data card. So, a couple of changes on here. The pistol range buff, yep. The 7-inch move, yep. The twin shuriken pistols were nerfed from relentless down to ceaseless, which I don't think anybody was taking the twin shuriken pistol option. And now you seem less likely to want to take the twin shuriken pistol option. I don't really understand why they wanted to do that. The twin chainswords gain ceaseless, which makes them cool. I still don't think they really... I still really like the Scorpion's Claw and Chainsword for these. Like, obviously, the Biting Blade... Like, the three melee weapons are kind of in contention with each other now. Twin Chainswords was the worst. It's kind of in contention with the others now. Obviously, yeah. Yeah. So fair. The Biting Blade, now this is really interesting. The Biting Blade, the Twin Chainswords, and the Scorpion's Claw have all gone down to 3+ hit. Have we seen, can anybody, I could look through all the articles myself, but have they just eliminated 2-up hits? Like, we remarked on this when we were doing Captain Justian, well, not Captain Justian anymore, Space Marine Captain, that he's now hitting all 3s with his Power Fist and his Plasma Pistol. And I thought maybe that was part of a incentive to nerf Plasma Pistols, because of the new way it gets Hot Works, where it's keyed off your hit stat, right? But now I've seen that the Exarch's hits have all gone down to 3. Is this just a thing where, hitting on 2s doesn't exist? Is that something that the game's designers have decided, actually, we don't want people to hit on 2? Let me know in the comments if I've missed a hitting on 2 model anywhere, but it is notable that they've all gone down to 3-up hit, so... Yeah, so some decent changes. The 3-up hit things are a little bit mystifying. Certainly, I know a lot of people get in their hobby horse about how powerful, and for some reason, Exarchs are supposed to be this most powerful thing in the lore. People really, really... I think there's a lot of things in 40k where everything in their own fluff is presented as the most powerful thing in the whole universe, that everything else just gets splattered by, but... Eldar fans get really rustled about their Exarchs, and now they're hitting on 3s, which is the same as a Space Marine Sergeant, but in Kill Team the same as a Space Marine Captain as well, so yeah, it's an interesting one. They've kind of seemed to have put in that ceiling of a 3 to hit. Hand of the Archon. So Power from Pain has changed a little bit. So they've put in this new clause. I'll read this new clause. After a friendly Hand of the Archon operative performs an action, it gains one of your pain tokens if, first bullet points, an enemy operative was injured during the action but was not incapacitated. So if you injure someone, you get a pain token, right? And then if you incapacitate someone, you get a pain token. We don't get 2. If you injure them, you get the pain token. And then it doesn't matter if you incapacitated them. If you incapacitate them, you also get the pain token. And then there is this threshold where if they have a wound stat of 12 or more, you get 2 pain tokens. The threshold used to be 11 for 2 pain tokens. It's gone up to 12. Invigorations, it now says... let me see. You can spend friendly operatives' pain tokens on invigorations when the when condition is met. Same old. You cannot use more than one invigoration per activation or counteraction except simulated sensors, which can be used in addition to other invigorations. So it used to be that you could only use each invigoration once except simulated sensors, whereas now you can't use more than one invigoration ever except simulated sensors. So that's interesting. A little change there. I've not played Hand of the Archon, I don't think, ever. So I've not got it fixed in my brain how many pain tokens you're likely to have and how often you're trying to do. Was this a play previously with Hand of the Archon? Were people using more than one invigoration a turn? Is that something you're going to miss? I don't know. The invigorations themselves seem the same, the ones that we've seen. And Prey on the Wounded is unchanged. Toxin Coating is unchanged, but the way it's been ported over to the new model for equipment, you can use it twice per turning point, which, considering it gives you a melee weapon lethal 5-up, the ability to have that, it's a melee-heavy team, there's quite a few melee operatives, the ability to have that jump around to the 2 operatives where it's needed all game, every turning point, seems pretty good. I really rate lethal 5-up as something that really tips the balance in combat, so I'm always drawn towards, power swords, things with that rule, right? I really rate lethal 5-up quite highly, so I really like Toxic Coating. I think if I played Hand of the Archon, I'd be looking to include Toxin Coating as one of my equipment picks. Obviously, with all the caveats about needing to see all the other equipments, but I like it. It's really improved. We've got a Hand of the Archon data card. Unless my eyes deceive me, they haven't changed very much. They've got a 7-inch move now, up from 6, and they've got the pistol range buff. And for some reason, like, Tangle had a different name on the ability originally. I think it was called, like, Flail, and now it's called Tangle, but it does the same thing. Right. So there's no real changes. Cool. Mandrakes. Now, this is a weird one. So they have, in all these articles, they've talked about all the abilities, and in every article where they haven't listed out every ability, they've mentioned in the free text, oh, they've also got the ability, this ability. Like the Astartes ability wasn't shown in a box out like this, but it was mentioned in the text. Mandrakes, they list their abilities as Soul Strike and Umber Entities, and they don't mention Shadow Passage. Shadow Passage is like the teleport, right? It's the iconic Mandrake ability. Now, they're still going to have an ability, I'm sure, with the guy that opens the portals. He's still going to be able to move his Mandrakes around. But it seems like the Mandrakes have lost their sort of generic team-wide ability to Shadow Passage about the place, which is... Like, I know a lot of people didn't like it, and they thought it needed a nerf, and this and that. I don't think I ever actually played against Mandrakes or as Mandrakes. I've dodged them in all the tournaments that I've been to, so... I don't have a massive opinion if it was broken, but it feels like, now obviously we don't know, absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, as they say, but it does seem like it's conspicuously absent, so perhaps Shadow Passage isn't a thing anymore. Bone Darts, equipment have been reworked, so Bone Darts, they gained a point of crit damage, so it's now 2/3, and it's a once per Mandrake per turning point you can use it. Do I rate a 4 attack, 3 up hit, 2/4 damage, 6-inch range rending silent shooting attack? Not really. It's got more chance of coming in clutch now that you can use it once per turning point from any of your Mandrakes. It's more likely that you're going to have someone that's just in a little situation where you're like, oh yeah, I can just dip out there or conceal and chip a few points off you with my Bone Darts. I can see it. It is much better than it was when it was on one particular model and you probably wouldn't remember to use it. Whether it's worth taking, I have to repeat myself, is thoroughly dependent on whether what the other equipment is that you can have. A Mandrake's data card. So this one's interesting. If we go back, Umber Entities, I said, was unchanged. Now, Umber Entities used to be you get a 4-up invulnerable save, which is still what it does. They've just reworded it to say, improve your save stat by 1 and ignore the piercing rule, which makes you have a 4-up invulnerable save. But it only does that because your save is currently 5-up. So they used to have a 6-up save and then a 4-up invulnerable in Shadow. So they've actually boosted your save for when you're not benefiting from Umber Entities. So when you're not within Shadow, if you're ever actually caught not next to that terrain, you have a 5-up save rather than a 6-up. So you still obviously... It's not that hard to have all the operatives in Shadow all the time, but if you are caught somehow mispositioned, or if somebody pulls you out with the Ventriloquist for that dash and moves you away, you'll still got that 5-up save, so that's quite nice to have. It's Eldar, so it's now moving 7 inches, and Huskblade, again, look, see, Huskblade was hitting on 2, it's another one where the weapon is hitting on 3. I really am starting, like, the Eldar has really hammered it home to me. I think we are seeing the end of 2-up hits in concept. Right. They're gone. And some people have said, maybe it's hinted, I should say, right, that maybe it's because leaders are no longer getting their weapon skill, ballistic skill bump. But if you look at until we have the whole picture, it's hard to say exactly how they're working out under the hood. But if you think back to Captain Justian, he's hitting on 3+ with his Power Fist, which, if Power Fist still have a hidden -1, would mean that he had a hidden weapon skill of 2 that was being modified to 3. I just think they've looked at it, and it happens to be that it's mostly leaders that could do it, right? Or entirely leaders. They've just got no one gets hit on a 2. It'd be really interesting to see if the Imperial Guard, like if your team is generally hitting on 4s, if your leader still gets hit on 3s, like we don't know that. I don't think they've shown any leaders in that category, but certainly I don't think there's any more 2-up hits in the game. Really interesting. Final thoughts. So I felt like there were fewer changes, like overall, like little minute changes. We've had more of those before, but it is starting to bring out these big trends that, elves now move this far, right? Pistols now have this range. 2-up hits are a thing of the past, potentially, So it's quite good to go through a couple of teams that perhaps haven't had a lot of like very specific changes to the team itself. So I'm still on my little streak of doing a video every single day. Nearly missed this one. It is, at time of recording, nearly 10 minutes past my bedtime, but such is my commitment to my community. And actually, channel is booming, doing the numbers, make more videos, get more views. Who knew? Tune in tomorrow for the hobby stream, so that's what tomorrow's video is going to be, is the hobby stream. The video on demands for the hobby stream are behind the member paywall. It is basically the only thing that is behind the member paywall, as well as like an extra Discord room and coloured names in the Discord and things like that. But if you really wanted to watch many, 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 many hours of me randomly rambling about things while failing to do hobby, consider membership. My eternal gratitude to those people who are members, who pay me some money each and every month through YouTube. Thank you so much. If you're interested, consider the memberships button down below. There's an extra video that will tell you about all the various perks that you get. But also thank you just to those people who are finding the channel for the first time and subscribing. Subscriber numbers are really, really going up. That's amazing. If you've enjoyed the video, if you've learned something from the video, if I've pointed something out that had currently passed by you, the best way to pay me back is just to subscribe. And if you've done that and you want to pay me back some more, just mention to a friend, hey, I found this cool channel, Tabletop Impulse. He's kind of chill and talks about stuff. Or whatever in your words you would say would probably be better. Alright, well, I'm falling asleep, so until next time, the live stream tomorrow, that's it from me. Cheerio. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Goodbye.